Big Dex is here. Big Dex is here. Welcome back to the Academy Insider Podcast. If you haven't seen the brand new epic spirit spot that's just been released, then you need to go to YouTube right now and check it out. You can also head to www.academyinsider.com/Big Dex, where we have all of the resources from the official poster to a link to the video. And then we're also going to have a form for you to submit any questions if you want to ask Rylan any questions, because we will do an Ask Me Anything with him into the future. But today's episode, you're just going to hear from Rylan. You're going to hear him talk about his vision and what he wanted to create out of this video. And here's a spoiler. It's all about Go America. Yes, it is the Army-Navy game. We're trying to raise hype for the Army-Navy game, and it's always beat Army. But this video is all about Go America. And so I'm so excited for you to hear it, his process, the iterations he went through, and everything that went into creating this epic video. You're gonna love it. Check it out and let me know what you think in the comments. Shoot me any questions, because we'll have more conversations with Ryland in the future. Otherwise, you already know what it is. Go Navy, beat Army, baby. The Academy Insider Podcast is sponsored by the Vermeer Group, a residential real estate company that serves the United States Naval Academy community and other select clientele in both California and Texas. If I can ever answer a real estate related question for you or connect you with a trusted Academy affiliated agent in the market which you're in, please reach out to me directly at grant@thevermeergroup.com. You can also reach out to me on my LinkedIn page, Grant Vermeer, and I'd be happy to respond to you there. Thank you so much. And now let's get back to the episode. Ryland, my guy, congratulations. Big Dex is out. How are you feeling, man? How are you feeling about the release of Big Dex?
Oh man, the last 24 hours has just been amazing. You know, we dropped it on Friday and finally it's out. This has been literally probably a year and a half in the making, from when I first started writing on it to raising the money to shooting it to post, you name it. So it's like, you know, it's grown its wings and it's flown. It's it's out there. It's great. It's great.
Yeah, 100%. I was talking with my dad actually as well earlier this week as it was getting ready for the launch and release, and we were talking about being in Vegas together, right, at the Military Influencer Conference, and you kind of approaching me with this idea, right? Like you said, you had started writing it, and it was like in your head, but you're like, I don't know if I'll ever be able to bring this to life. And you came to me with it, and I was like, dude, like however we can make this happen, like whatever I can do to help you get it out into the world, like I want to do it. And so like for me too, it's been so fun to watch you kind of like, again, get to this point where it was an idea and now it's out and it's on YouTube and people are sharing it and cracking up. And so, I kind of want to talk again in our previous discussions, it's, you've had to be a little bit more secretive because you didn't want to give away, like the theme of the video, this idea of Big Dex being the double entendre that you're really playing off of, from Helm Yeah to We Give a Ship, all these different things. This one is Big Dex. For you, like what was your mindset and focus in like grounding this joke in Navy terminology, and like what was the vision of like bring this to life? Now that idea is out there, like how did this idea come to life? What's the significance of it, and what did you want people to take away from the video?
It was such a calculated process. I mean, for the last year and a half, I started writing on it, and I had the version that we see now on YouTube is drastically different than probably the 10 or so versions that I wrote of Big Dex before. And it's because I was trying to settle on like, what is the rhythm? What is the joke? What is the pacing? Where's the comedy? You know, I think the greatest thing is, let's see, holy cow, 10 years ago, I released We Give a Ship. A
Yeah,
decade
we're old.
ago,
Yeah.
I'm really old. We released We Give a Ship, and it was the first nod to the double entendre, right? Like, and I didn't think that would be the brand that I was starting to make, but I love the humor, and I think at the end of the day, like we are the U.S. military. Like it's not we operate in a real world, very grounded scenario, and so I thought like, hey, having a little bit adult humor would be funny, and everybody agreed with that, right? I think the video is still being watched online. It has like a 500,000 views, and so when Helm Yeah came around, it was kind of the same vein. I was like, let's have something that can be a slogan for people to yell. And
Mhm.
I can't remember when or how I came across the idea of Big Dex, but the thing that I loved is that in the surface community, and to all those SWOs out there that are watching this, they can please email me and fact check me on this because I'm not a SWO. I was a CD guy. But there is a term that's like, oh yeah, I'm on a big deck,
On a
amphib or
big deck.
carrier, right? And
Mhm,
so Big Dex itself was not a far reach, or I wasn't trying to make something happen. I was just
mhm,
like, this is terminology that we use in our everyday. Let me ground it in a really fun way. Because at the end of the day, like, I'll be point blank, we do have the biggest decks in all of the world. And everybody knows that. Like, we have the biggest ships, right?
quite
I so I was like, why not play with that humor?
mhm,
And as you have seen, as hopefully everybody is seeing, that the script itself is really, really grounded in
mhm,
like actually commenting about the size of the aircraft carriers, right? The
yep,
decks. And,
mhm,
and so running with that was just so much fun. And I will say, like, because we were so critical, scrutinizing, there are many versions of this spirit spot that will
mhm,
never see the light of day because
yep,
we shot a lot more. We have so many other jokes, but at the end of the day, I like have been sharing it with a number of small focus groups, moms, dads, grandparents in and around the neighborhood where I live, literally knocking on doors and be like, hi, can I show you a video? and and the feedback was that it was very fun. There were no the version that we see now, it's just it's made for everyone, and that was the intent, right? Like, at the end of the
mhm,
day, yes, it's Go Navy, yes, it's Beat Army, but I wanted this to be a very unifying Go America.
mhm,
And I think how fun it is that at the end of the day, that's ultimately what America's game is, right? It's
yep,
Go Navy, Go Army, Go America. And so
mhm.
anyway, I just really wanted to lean into that, and Big Dex was a fun way to do that. And I'm so happy that it's out.
Yeah, 100%. I'm just gonna double down on what you're saying, which is exactly that. And again, I really wanna emphasize that Big Dex is not a far reach. Like you said, again, in the service community, you have all these things. You even know it as a midshipman. If you're on a destroyer or even a cruiser, sometimes you would call it you're on a small boy, right? Like, you have a distinction of class type ships in the Navy, right? You can be on a small boy or you can be on a big deck, right? Like, those are the terminologies that are just like very commonplace. And so, the joke itself is not a far reach. And I think one of the really cool aspects, and it comes down to even where you decided to film, which was on board the USS Midway, which has been turned into a museum in San Diego, but its significance in United States history and military history. And it comes to our military power with the United States and quite literally the size of our deck and our ability to utilize air power from sea, right? And so I think this is so cool. And was that a tactical decision on your end too to try and get to the midway? Like, like what was this like full push of like I just again for your thing of like this being a Go America video, family friendly, funny, raising the spirit of America's game, and really nailing down on this idea of Go America.
Well, I'll tell you that the iterations, there were numerous iterations because when I first had the idea, I was hoping that I would maybe film on an actual aircraft carrier, like a actual U.S. Navy aircraft carrier. But as I started formulating the idea, I realized, and this is, I mean, I'll be point blank. This is, I in some ways had my hands tied when I was in the Navy because there were certain creative things I could and could not do because the Navy always had the final say. And so I knew that if I tried to film on the Ford or the Bush, right, or the
Hmm.
Stennis, I knew that I would face a lot of opposition because
Hmm.
the idea was inherently edgier. So
Sure.
from the get go, I said, okay, I think I have to film this outside of the U.S. Navy system. I
Hmm.
didn't even bring it to them in the first place because I said I need to create this separate from them because I just wouldn't have the creative freedom, right? So first I teamed up with Pro 4, Production 4, which is a production company based out of Austin. And I teamed up with them because I've shot all of the USAA commercials with them. They're a
Hmm.
fantastic production company, and they have a digital studio. So we first were going to shoot this all in a studio, like on animated virtual reality backgrounds. Think of like The Mandalorian, where
Yep.
the camera moves and the background moves. It was going to be quite the high tech reveal and project. But as we were, talking about the reality of what we were trying to do, I first was like, okay, I have the Midway here. Is it too far of a stretch to call them? And at the same time, the production company in Austin called the carrier that was in Corpus, and
Hmm.
they went and toured the Corpus carrier, and I went to the Midway. And I'd been on the Midway before because I did a lot of work with the Top Gun Maverick for their
Mhm.
promotional work for around the global premiere. So I was on the deck then whenever Tom Cruise landed and went down. And I saw that they could turn their space into something really cool and cinematic, right? So I
Yeah.
ended up calling them and I said I had this crazy idea, and they're like, "Who are you?" And I said, "Oh, I'm this guy. I used to go to the Naval Academy. I made this video called Naptown Funk," and they're like, "Oh, we know Naptown Funk." So that got me the meeting. I went
Mhm.
in and I made everybody sign NDAs before because I wanted to keep the idea pretty close. And I went in,
Mhm.
they signed it, and they're very apprehensive. They're like, "Okay, you're making us sign this. It better be a good idea." I give it to them. They were cracking up. And like, I just have not had like the Midway, shout out to the USS Midway Museum because
Mhm.
they are just fantastic people. Vanessa, Paulette, the whole team over there, they were behind me from day one, and they were
Mhm.
like, "Let's see how we can make this happen." They were just so accommodating. And also at the end of the day, even though the team that I had helped from production perspective fly in from Texas, it just made so much sense to shoot it on the Midway. And also shout out to the Midway and anybody who hasn't been to the USS Midway Museum in San Diego. You must
Mhm.
add that to your list. Just such a cool spot and place. And so we told them what we were trying to do, and they're like, "Okay." And so they were on board. And what you see in the video, we shoot the opening scenes on the flight deck.
Yep.
We started shooting it. We got there at like 5:30 a.m. when it was still dark. Started shooting around 6:30, right when the sun was coming up. That's because the museum didn't open until 10. So we had the entire space to run through. Grant, that's when you made your cameo, man.
Yeah, that's
And
right. I was the first shot of the whole thing. I didn't want to hold us up and mess it up.
you set the tone, man. You set the tone. And here, just there's Grant.
Right there, the great in the top right. Come on now.
And
Yeah.
so we started shooting, and then every the biggest question I've been asked lately is like, where did you all shoot all of the other scenes and like the international scenes and all of that stuff? And we shot that on the carrier. We had a couple classrooms where our production designer built out an actual set for
Mhm.
all of the other scenes. The Pentagon scene was all there, everything was there, and it's so cool that everything you see on the Big Dex is filmed on the Midway. So it's just cool that we have that type of space access. And I mean, at the end of the day, like if you're making a piece called Big Decks, you better shoot it on a big deck, you
You
know?
better shoot it on a big deck. That's it.
So
Right.
anyway, just so grateful that we did that. It was 2 busy, long days in October
Yeah.
that we shot, and couldn't have been happier.
Yeah. No, I highlight on that as well. Again, all this happened in 48 hours from the actual filming side of the house, right? Like you should have seen Rylan in action. And I know Rylan, I believe the intent for you is to release kind of a full behind the scenes video to show everything that happened in the creation of it. But it's just so cool that you were able to accomplish all of that in, again, this time frame that you said. Like there were a couple times where there's a couple scenes that still needed to get filmed on the deck and museum was open, right? And so now it's like coordination and a half trying to bring everything to life, and he did it. And he did it. And
I
so
will. I'll tell everybody's watching gets this exclusive Easter egg. There is one scene where there's a pedestrian walking through the video. I'm not going to tell you where it is. You just got to find it on your own. If you find it, message me, whatever. And yeah, it's really. I mean, like that's the thing is we're shooting. We have 4 hours. I remember my first AD, that's my first assistant director, was yelling like, "It's opening! You gotta wrap it up. You gotta wrap it up." And I remember I was standing there, and they're like, "There's someone in the background." I'm like, "Let's go," And anyway, it was a wild 48 hours, but like that's kind of the status quo. I mean, I shot Knockdown Funk in 3 hours and 57 minutes, like
mhm,
because I had 4 hours to close down Maryland Ave. So I this is nothing new to me, and
mhm,
despite the fact that we had 70 cast and crew on this project, like
yeah,
it's just amazing that we were able to accomplish everything we did. And I'll just say this: the one thing that I'm just so happy is that I truly feel like we were able to capture all of the different worlds, with everyone's support through
mhm,
this Kickstarter. It really lent itself to increasing the production value and allowing us to like, what does the Space Force look like? What does the Air Force look like? What is Coast Guard? What about the Marines? What about Pentagon?
mhm.
And what about all the other nations that are jealous of our
Nice.
power
Yeah.
projection? Like anyway, it was just a fantastic time.
Oh man, that's awesome. And so cool. And in your opinion, again, as the creative here, again, a lot of the Army Navy spirit spots, like we've mentioned before, are purely like a beat Army thing, right? Or like a beat whoever we're playing. You made the conscious choice to wrap in every single service as well, and kind of end the video with a hardcore like "Go America," right? Like, what was like? What was your intention and desire and the hope of like the output of this in your mind, in just like the overarching like high level military United States and just like global geopolitical idea here with this video?
I've been out now for 3 years, almost three
Mhm,
years, right? And I think the one universal thing that anybody who serves takes away is yes, the rivalry between branches is so much fun. But at the
mhm,
end of the day, it truly is, this is so cliche, but it's so real. It's one team, one fight. And it was very important to me that now that I'm out, I have this kind of different perspective of my time in service. And I think it's so important that we highlight at the end of the day, yes, okay, one day of the year on Army Navy game day, we can like, beat each other up on the field, right? But it truly it's a unifying thing. And
mhm,
I think Go America just put into perspective that yes, the Navy has the biggest decks, but the Navy is still a part of the US military. So we as a collective have the biggest decks in all of the world, right? And
mhm,
and so I just thought it was very important to bring it together and yes, to poke fun at the different branches of service, like you
mhm.
have to. That's the comedy element. But at the end of the day, this piece is about bringing us together and truly sharing in that unity and, patriotism. And so that to me was really important.
Yeah, 100%. Well, Rylan, thank you so much, man. I know we'll have an intention for anyone who's listening here on Academy Insider and you want to ask Rylan a question specifically. Rylan and I are going to do another version of an Ask Me Anything about any piece of the spirit spot that you enjoyed or you had a question about, or there's a unique aspect to military thing that you might not understand the joke fully or whatever the case is, or just his creative idea, the design, who the actors are, etc. We're going to do that. Shoot me a message here on Academy Insider. You can send me an email. You can send a message via social media, whatever it is, with questions for Rylan. And we're going to start to build this because we're going to do an even more in-depth breakdown of all of, like all the content inside, and allow you to ask any questions that you have. But this episode today was really, again, just to allow Rylan to just like let the stress and the burden of like this looming over his head to get out of there and just highlight what he wants, the takeaway to be from this video and everything. And so I appreciate that greatly. Rylan, I'll turn it back over to you for any last thoughts that you have before, we just continue to share this video, go around and move forward.
It's just been a phenomenal journey. So grateful for Academy Insider support. So grateful your acting chops, hell of an acting chops.
Thank you.
Watch out Academy Awards. And I just want to share this video. I want people to enjoy it. And as we ramp up to Army Navy Week, which is going to be here before we know it, why not kick it off early? And I hope Big Dex did that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love it. Rylan, thank you so much, brother. Again, I think what you're doing here with this video, and again, I think a lot of times when you're in the service, sometimes, and it's not necessarily a bad thing, I understand from the organization perspective, but there is red tape, right? And so for us to be able to be out of the service now, kind of be able to have a little bit more creative freedom, but still do it in a way, as again, I know our intention is to wildly support and have it be an overwhelmingly positive experience for our military community that we care a ton about. This has been really cool to watch you bring it to life. So thank you so much for what you do, sharing your talents and showcasing everything you do with all of us, bringing a little bit of joy, laughter, and just overall pride leading up to the Army Navy game. So thank you, brother. And again, anyone listening, shoot us questions because we'll be back to get you a little access directly to Rylan. So appreciate it. Rylan, you're the man. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Academy Insider Podcast. I really hope you liked it, enjoyed it, and learned something during this time. If you did, please feel free to like and subscribe or leave a comment about the episode. We really appreciate to hear your feedback about everything and continue to make Academy Insider an amazing service that guides, serves, and supports midshipmen, future midshipmen, and their families. Thank you.